You're listening to Rep Radio. Our goal is simple. We support, promote, engage, and inspire the arts community by igniting the ghost light that shines on the stages of the up-and-coming, the unsung heroes, the brilliant writers, and the dynamic designers. Our podcast breaks the fourth wall to give you an inside look at the plays and the players. Stay tuned. Rep Radio is on the air. Today on the podcast, Liam Mulshine and I play catch-up, share thoughts on virtual theater, and talk about returning to the stage in person with the Inishnua American premiere of A Holy Show by Janet Moran. Here is my interview with Liam Mulshine.
Because of my headphones today. Welcome to Rep Radio. I'm your host, Darnell Radford, and today I'm in the virtual studio with Liam Mulshine. Liam, welcome back to the podcast.
Thank you. Great to be here. Good to see you.
How long has it been? It's been forever.
Forever. Yeah, no, I've lost track of everything, so I don't know.
It is kind of interesting how we got so used to seeing each other, all of us. We've gotten so used to seeing each other in various opening nights and theaters and passing and so on, and then we all went kind of radio silent. Even though we're all connected to social media, we were still kind of like off the grid for 18 months. I mean, I've rounded it up to 2 years, even though 18 months is 6 months short.
Yeah, it's coming close to that.
Yeah, it's great to see you. A virtual audience, you can't see him. You'll have to come to the show so that you could see Liam. Bring me up to speed. What is the last 18 months been for you?
Oh man, gosh, it's been a roller coaster. Like I'm sure it has for so many of us. I mean, it was. There were, side jobs that I was laid off from and some that I was able to keep and go remote with, which was really, I felt fortunate to have and, just sort of learn to lean on the supports in my life, like my wonderful husband, Kevin, and our two lovely cats, and just like, my universe just shrank down to the, scale of our house. And I just learned to live day in and day out in this one little tiny Philly row house. It's been weird. It's been hard, definitely, but I've gotten through it, and I'm so excited to start to be seeing people on the street and in person, and even, grabbing drinks outside and coffee and stuff with friends. So, I don't know. I mean, I'm trying to think of what the highlights of my time were. I mean, I really sort of went into like hibernation mode professionally, sort of with theater stuff. Like, I thought it was great that some people were like, working throughout and just doing everything they could to stay busy. And I just sort of felt like, I don't know if that's for me right now. And I took a break from like, trying to find that work, the digital work, the remote work. Everyone was doing shows on Zoom, and some of them I really enjoyed, and a lot of them I missed because I just couldn't, drag myself to the laptop every night to watch a show on Zoom, because it was kind of, it was like, makes me miss the real thing. But then I ended up doing my own show on Zoom with my little Commedia dell'arte theater company during the pandemic, which actually turned out to be a really lovely experience. And I got to work with people that I've never met in person, actually, because we hired some some additional actors for our show, and we got to do a live show on Zoom with audience interaction with people all over the country and even different countries. And, it was cool to experience theater in a way that I never would have before this time. So I'm really, really grateful for that. And
yeah, I can definitely relate to that. The comment you made about being kind of sheltered away in your Philly row home, little Philly row home. I definitely remember saying, like, probably after the first 2 weeks, I was saying, really not much has changed except we're wearing masks. We still go grocery shopping on the weekend. We still, have the trash still comes, like, until it stopped. And then, the working from home, I mean, I was fortunate enough to be able to work from home. And I just had to get into a rhythm, because when you're not working from home, it's something you want to do. And you definitely think you can handle it until you're required to work from home. And then you kind of get stir crazy and you're like, yeah, but I don't want to be here by myself. My thought process of working from home was I would work from coffee shops, and I would meet friends and colleagues all over town. And that's how I was going to get through this. But even though there were a ton of people outside all the time, it still felt like we weren't allowed to be out there. I don't know if you ever saw those Biden memes where, at the end of the Obama presidency, where Biden's looking out the White House window, and and they would add some silly comment. And I just kind of got a little chuckle just thinking about that. I was like, every time I'm looking outside now, I used to see these kids down the street who were, just as excited as they always were. And I was like, did their parents not know what's going on? But at the same time, they were right in front of their house. Their house was like right at the end of the corner. So they were in a safe space. But it was I was like, I don't know. Are we allowed? Like, it was a moment where we just sort of felt like we needed permission to just use common sense. And, and it took a bit of adjusting. So I wanted to ask you, was there an adjustment period? Of course, it was tough for all of us at the beginning, but was there a moment where you kind of got into a rhythm and started thinking like, oh, wait a minute, I can still be an artist. I can write, all the time. I wish I had for other things.
Yeah, that's a good question. I mean, I think I had trouble finding the rhythms that really worked. And, like I have little spaces that I would move around to try to like figure out, like, is this where I can be most productive? Is this, is it in the kitchen, or is it in the living room, or is it on my bed? But I found it really tricky to have, my life collapsed into one physical place, because I find that having to go somewhere else and like, this is where I do that thing. This is where I, am more physical, and this is where I'm using my mind more, and this is where I'm eating, having those separate helps me to sort of keep some order and mental organization to my life. But I did definitely lean into things that put me into something of like a flow state. I don't know if you've ever heard about that idea of like an artistic flow, or maybe it doesn't have to be artistic, but just something that you're just so engrossed in that you can do it for 6 hours or 8 hours, and you look up and suddenly it's like midnight, and you're like,
so much time has been.
What was I doing? Yeah, because you just are so passionate about it, or you just are so interested in what you're doing, and so I found myself doing things that sort of where I was able to slip into that flow state of like, I learned a little bit about video editing, and I was helping my mom, who had written a book last summer. She came out with a book, and she asked me to help her with some videos to promote it. And so it was like this little artistic project that.
Tell us the name of the book.
Oh, it's called All Stirred Up. And it's about the suffrage movement of the, well, it was a many decades long process, but culminating in the 19th Amendment, which gave some women the right to vote. And she looked at it from the viewpoint of these communities of women who were advocating for the right to vote, who would put together cookbooks and then go sort of door to door or like distribute to help just start conversations with other women and to spread their message. And some recipes were sort of tongue in cheek about like, you know, the idea of the right to vote being a part of the recipe, and some were just like great recipes. So so yeah, my mom looked at that period and asked me to sort of dig in some archives with her and find photos, and then I hired some amazing Philly actors to do some voiceovers for the videos, to sort of read the words of these suffragists and the anti-suffragists of the time. So it was just a new way to sort of use some of my artistic interests, and it was really satisfying to do. And I could easily spend 12 hours straight just, you know, trying to get the 3-minute video to look as good as possible. And then I started doing that with some of the stuff with my Commedia dell'arte theater company, called Tuzzani Theater Company. And so I started editing some videos of us doing just little sketches, basically, with wearing masks, but trying, you know, what does Commedia look like in the Zoom world that we're all trapped inside of. So yeah, I found little outlets here and there that that would keep me occupied and excited about you know, something I could do and share with the world. You know, during this time when we couldn't be on stage.
Yeah. I think once I realized that I could go outside, I started getting into that was my self-care. It was like, I can go on these walks.
Yeah.
And I can be consistent about them. And if I can get myself into a rhythm, then, you know, this will be a part of my flow. This will be part of my daily flow. So I definitely thought about that. I found pockets in the morning. I looked for my afternoon moments. I mapped out routes. You know, I was like, okay, if I do this route, this is like 2.5 miles, but it's like an hour and 10 minutes. You know, so I can do this consistently. This is like a podcast, you know, a full hour podcast and a news podcast, you know, or something. Yeah. I was just thinking about like how I would have spent that time anyway. And is there something else I can do that I wouldn't have been able to do if I was sitting in the grind? You know, and those things really helped. And I think, you know, I heard from many artists there were a lot of artists who were just like, I'm motivated by this moment. There's things I want to create, and I'm you know, I'm going to take advantage of this. But there were others who were like, you know what? What's going on right now is like, this is the permission to take a step back and actually just focus on self-care and focus on family and the people that are close to you, and not necessarily worry about, you know, this vehicle that we've been in nonstop. It does feel like we are nonstop all the time, because like the summer slows down for the theater season, but it's still a moving car, you know, as we're prepping for, you know, the return of the fall with festivals and, you know, fringe arts and so on, as we get into a new season. So we don't always get an opportunity to really take a break. And there was a moment where I looked at this whole thing as like, you know, some people say when you get a cold or you get the flu, that's your body saying it's time for you to slow down and maybe take stock in this, or also when you're tired, like you're just everything you've been doing, stop. Focus on us.
Yeah.
Focus here, And yeah, so those were some things. They were takeaways that I do hope, and I believe that many are going to move forward thinking about, there's some of that time that was actually so much more valuable than I had ever thought it would be.
Mm-hmm.
And I want it to be a part of the future, even though I'm optimistic and excited about getting back to a rhythm of things.
Yeah, definitely put a lot into perspective and offered some clarity about what's really important and what can be left behind.
So, for Inishnua Theater Company, you are not a stranger to Inishnua's stage. And when did you know that that Inishnua was going to start, bringing productions back to the stage again?
Gosh, I don't know if I really had my finger on the pulse of what their plans were. I had done most recently this reading, which was sort of a pre-recorded, lightly edited reading of a show called No Kids, directed by Robbie Hager, last season. So I don't know when that was, but a number of months ago, that we all created in our separate spaces, and then I heard that there were plans for the next season, but I think through the summer even there were just questions about, like, are we going to be doing live theater? Is any theater going to be doing live theater come the fall, or are we going to be doing another season of readings from our bedrooms? But Tom Rang reached out to me, the director of the show and the artistic director of Inishnua, and asked if I would want to audition on Zoom for this project that he was working on called A Holy Show. And he sent the script, and it just seemed amazing and like a lot of fun and sort of daunting, which is, I think, how I like my theater generally. So yeah, I was really excited to be asked to audition for something which I feel like is if you have to audition, at least being asked to audition rather than asking to audition is a nice place to be in. To have someone who's worked with you in the past be like, hey, what are you doing? Do you want to think about working on this with me? And so I auditioned, and here we are.
And here we are. So tell us about A Holy Show by Janet Moran.
Yeah, so it's a newish show. She wrote it, I think, a few years ago. And it was first produced, I believe, in 2019, so just prior to the pandemic shutting everything down. And they had it at Edinburgh Fringe, which is where Tom saw it, and then had plans for a tour of either Ireland or a larger tour, which was shuttered because of the pandemic. But the show itself is inspired by the actual events of the hijacking of an Aer Lingus flight from Dublin to London in May of 1981, where an Australian ex-monk hijacked the plane by dousing himself in a liquid, which he said was petrol, and went into the cockpit and said, "Don't fly to London, I want to go to Iran." And the pilot said, well, we don't have enough fuel to get to Iran because this is a flight for London. And they ended up being diverted to France, where he insisted on the tarmac that he get in touch with the Pope, or that the Pope, contact him and release this secret that the Vatican had been holding on to called the Third Secret of Fatima, which is... this is such a convoluted story. It just sounds like it can't be true. But so that story of Fatima is that in 1917, 3 little shepherd children in Portugal said that they saw the Virgin Mary, and that she told them 3 secrets, and that they were each, these visions of sort of what is to come. and they were told to, the first two secrets, I think they were told to tell everyone. And then the third secret, the Virgin Mary said, this must remain secret. And so the woman, the shepherd girl who grew up to become a nun, eventually was convinced to tell the secret close to the time of her death to the local bishop, who went to the Pope at that time and sort of gave this sealed letter saying, here's the third secret, but no one can know, or only you can know. So there was like a series of a couple popes who knew the secret and no one else did. And so this hijacker, who seems to have just not been well and was misunderstood and sort of a loner and had been rejected from the places he tried to be a part of. He thought, if it's about the end of the world, I want to know, what it is. And the best way to do it at the time was to hijack a plane. In the 60s, 70s, and 80s, apparently, it was like the golden age of hijacking. When for a time, I learned through our dramaturg, there was a hijacking internationally every 5 days. And they were usually bloodless events. They were just sort of someone saying, I want to go here and I want this, give me this. And so they often ended up with, some sort of ransom paid or whatever. And then we moved, people moved on with their lives. So anyway, this is a very strange hijacking story. And Janet Moran, the playwright, decided to make it a 2-person show where the 2 actors would portray all of the characters within the plane, basically. So the pilot, the air hostesses, the passengers, the hijacker, and then a number of reporters and the Portuguese children and the Virgin Mary. So it's me and Rachel Broder, another awesome actor who's worked with Inishnuwa before, sort of scrambling around the stage, jumping back and forth between all these characters that we play.
Which is very quintessentially Inishnuwa.
Yeah.
There's always a lot going on, and it's always an exciting ride.
Yep. Yeah, and Rachel Broder just did Box Clever prior to the pandemic with Inishnuwa, which was Barrymore nominated for her, and she played like 20 characters in that. So she's very adept at switching back and forth.
How far into the first read of A Holy Show did it pull you in?
It was pretty quick. I mean, there's like a joke every couple lines. It sort of, I don't know, I'm trying to think of what other things in life feel similar to it. It's sort of like an episode of 30 Rock or something, where it's just like, you gotta, keep listening, because you're gonna miss the next joke if you're laughing too hard at the last one. And so yeah, I was like cracking up reading it, and just to imagine that, the 2 actors in the show would be jumping back and forth. It's like, I don't know how this is possible to be done, but yeah, I was like, this is sort of an actor's dream. I mean, it's like I play a old granny, I play a little girl, I play, this sort of angry hijacker, I play a newlywed, all these characters from all these parts of Ireland and also Australia for the hijacker. And it's a lot of fun. It's like campy and silly and full of like clown moments, basically. And so it's like a dream to do, and has like snapped me out of my, pandemic fatigue, the doldrums of the last 18 months. I've suddenly, like, every night I'm like running around for an hour and just having the best time.
Yeah. Talk about how your training and your own company sort of lend to the exercise that allows you to portray these characters in this production.
Yeah. Yeah, I think I would have been way too intimidated to do this kind of show without my foundation in commedia dell'arte and physical theater and mime and clown. Just having done a bunch of like jumping into a character and jumping out and putting on a mask and seeing how that informs my body and changes me, and what kind of voices might match the physicality. Just all that experimenting and failing and trying, and all that, just sort of like being ugly basically, and just going for it and seeing what it's like. And if I have to pull it back, I can do that. And if it works, it works. All of that messiness from Commedia and everything else has really helped build some confidence to know that I can, I can do this kind of thing, and that these characters are, within me, or at least I can find them, I can discover them. So yeah, Rachel and I worked with Dan Higby, who is our movement coordinator for the production, and he was so helpful, just providing another outside eye with just an eye for physicality and for just having that like rigor for our mime work, and also just making sure each character was like really well defined and separate from the rest, so that it didn't become a muddy mess. He really made a huge difference in sort of just putting us through our paces, learning to manipulate invisible objects in space, and practice how different characters might walk, and so yeah, my Commedia just was invaluable in this process, the training.
So we've seen quite a few clips of Broadway returning, and even here as well. The Kimmel Center did an art launch event where these were like the first events that were in person, and there's basically like we have to give probably like 10 to 15 minutes to just sort of welcome everyone back to the space. What was it like on opening night? How did it feel to be in front of an audience for the first time in 18 months?
It's pretty surreal. It was amazing and terrifying all at once. It was like, I've just not been used to being, with so many people in one room. And on top of that, Inishnu has been really great about making sure everyone in the room is vaccinated, but that also all audience members are masked, which I appreciate and I want for safety reasons. But it really makes it strange to look out. We have these moments where we sort of break the fourth wall. And so we're like looking at our audience, pretending they're passengers on this plane, and they're all wearing masks, so I can only see their eyes. And
just like
right, yeah. And so I'm like, I can't quite tell if anyone's smiling or enjoying this, but like sometimes I can hear laughter from behind the masks, and that's great. But it's a little, it was definitely daunting to see those faces without smiles. But I was just so grateful to sort of have that rush return, the feeling of being in the moment. And it's like this vulnerability of being on stage that's so terrifying and so gratifying at the same time. To just fail or like succeed in front of people and not really have a safety net. It's a weird experience, but I'm really glad to be back. And I think the audiences have really enjoyed being back in theater as well, because it's somewhat new for all of them too.
Yeah, I feel like every curtain speech should say, "Can we bring the house lights up? I want to see all the smizes."
Mm-hmm. Yeah,
everyone's smiling.
Yeah,
and a theater going audience is I don't want to say different, but it's unique. It's not just your run of the mill crowd.
mm-hmm.
So I wouldn't be surprised if like the mindset, you know how when someone who's like a notable figure walks into a space and people clap and they stand and they give like a standing ovation or something, and then that person
Hmm.
says, "Oh, no, 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 sit down, sit down."
Yeah.
Like I feel like that internally, where I'm just like, take off those masks, like, but leave them on. You
Yeah. Yeah. Yeah.
know,
Right.
you're just like, we're all family here, aren't we? Like
Yeah.
I kind of recognize you. I don't know you, but welcome, welcome.
Right.
Good to have you.
Yeah.
Everybody's here with us.
Right.
Um, yeah, I think it's going to be. I think we want that so badly
Hmm.
that it's just going to feel like a. I feel it just reminds me of January. You know how for
Mm.
the whole month of January we're telling everyone Happy New Year because
Hmm.
we because the last time we saw them was last year.
Right.
It'll I think it's going to be like that all season. We're just going to be so happy to be in a space with people because we're going to be kind of spaced out. We're going to have precautions, and then those precautions are going to let up
Hmm.
ever so slightly, and we're going to get back to something that's more familiar, of the time past,
Hmm.
until we get to that. It's going to be an interesting experience.
Yeah.
Um, but what does this production and this moment make you think and feel about the future of theater?
Hmm. Wow, what a question. I mean, I most am just so grateful to have those moments of connection with audience members and like hearing the laughter in person, and just like there's just been a few moments where I'm so filled with gratefulness that I'm able to do what I do, and just how fun it is to get to tell these stories and make people laugh, and take people sort of on transportative journeys. I mean, that's been really special and meaningful, through the many months that we're all waiting for this to happen, for these days to come. And I also just think I think there's kind of a weird parallel in the message of the show. Like, it takes a little looking at a funny angle at the show, but like, it's this moment of a person who, in the show, he's hijacked the plane, and all of the passengers are kind of coming face to face with like, this might be it, this might be the end, and even he is like, this might be the end, and I need to know, the secret, and and so throughout the show, you sort of watch the characters make these decisions about like, what do I do if this is my last day? What's important to me, and what do I need to tell someone, even if they're the stranger in the seat next to me? What mind do I have to change, or what secret do I have to tell? So I just like realizing that there's this parallel, that we've all come pretty close to like looking at our own mortality, I think, throughout all this, and seeing the numbers of lives lost and all that, and just thinking like, okay, if this is it, what do I want to have done, and what am I grateful for, and who do I want to be near, and what do I want to tell them? So I'm just thinking about that as I do this madcap farce of a show.
And now that you've had your own experience with virtual theater and you've experienced virtual theater, and so being on the other side of it at this point, what are your thoughts on virtual theater? You
Hmm.
know, when you did your virtual production, was this an adjustment? Was it new? Was it familiar? Yeah. What are your
Yeah.
thoughts on virtual theater?
Huh. Well, I guess I would say on the outset, I love film and TV, and like, that's another passion of mine. And I like, I lived in LA and did some film work and some TV work, and I feel like that's, virtual theater and film and TV are kind of like cousins, so maybe they should hang out. And maybe, I love the theater productions. Like, there were some that the Wilma put out that were just like little movies, and it was like, oh my gosh, these amazing Philly actors are like doing a movie basically, and I get to watch it at home for 15, $20. So I kind of feel like, yeah, why not have more amazing movies essentially that are these, filmed versions of plays, and I love the ones that are more experimental. And then as far as the work that I did with Tutsani Theater Company, the format that we chose was to have it on a live Zoom, where we asked our audience members to keep their cameras on if they felt comfortable. And, they're welcome to be muted, but we wanted to see their faces. And we encouraged them to use the chat function and to use the like little reaction emojis. And we tried to just really lean into the new format, because with Commedia dell'arte, like, the audience is such a vital part of the show. Like, the show basically can't exist unless there's people there, feeding it with their energy and with their applause and boos and laughter and everything. So we tried to recreate that as best we could. And we decided, all these Commedia characters were also being forced to work remotely. And so we're having like a big staff orientation. And so we just watched the, inner workings of this corporation that was run by these two ridiculous sisters, and just, watched all the little employees, go behind each other's backs and talk about each other on the chat, and sort of scandals and laughter ensued. And it was really awesome to like have people write in the chat like, oh, I don't agree with that. And then we'd be like, oh, you don't agree with that? I saw that. Yeah. Like, tell me about that, or whatever. And so it was like,
tell
people
me,
were
Janice.
like, yeah,
Just
it wasn't
names.
it wasn't just like like a link that you click on to watch the pre-recorded show. It was like, no, it's happening right now. And, I'm in Philly, and someone else is in DC, and someone else is in Las Vegas and Colorado. And we're all making the show together, and we need you here to be a part of it. So that was really cool. So we'll see. We'll tuck that in our pocket and probably come back to it at some point, because we, as a theater company, all live very far apart. And so sometimes remote is the only way to work together. So.
Yeah. And I appreciate those moments. It does not replace live theater, but it's a different kind of experience to be able to engage with an audience and have an audience engage with the artist while they are performing. It's because you're not in the space live, they're not shouting at you, they're just in the chats, so the company, the production can engage. That is something I thought it was such a unique addition. We get it when we tune into like a live feed, if somebody's on one of the social platforms and they're live and somebody can chat, hi from Philadelphia, or something like that. I thought that was an interesting element that is, we always say that we go through the whole rehearsal process, and the missing piece is the audience. So we have the audience there with us. It's just in a different form. So to see it in that form, I said, I think that there's space for this virtual audience in the future of live theater as well. I still want to see people in the audience in a live space, but I also want to know that there is a virtual audience tuning in as well. And I wonder if there's a way to I really hope the companies think about how to keep them both, because you're right. It's having somebody on the West Coast experience the work in real time, while you're here in real time on the East Coast is something that's valuable as well. So, we do it with television, but this isn't television. And it doesn't look or feel like television.
Right.
It has this different element, and we can't. I don't want to call it Zoom theater because I don't want to give Zoom that much credit. That's why I've been saying like virtual theater. And even though a
Yeah.
lot of people are in Zoom, and I'm like, I'm not in Zoom, but
Yeah.
you know,
Yeah.
yeah, I think I was like, do we call this like a virtual, like a virtual play? There's like a screenplay, there's a play and a teleplay, there's all kind. What do we call this?
Mm-hmm.
So we haven't quite defined what it is yet, and
Yeah.
it was a placeholder right now. But I think, in the future it'll have a more definitive space, and I would be
Yeah.
interested to see what it is.
Mm-hmm.
And how it complements what we love and celebrate about live theater.
Yeah. Yeah. It definitely feels like we're sort of through this obstacle and this adversity, we're pushed into this, new realm of like discovering and creating a new technology and a new art form together. And it seems like, in some form it'll stick around. And yeah, I agree. I think it's great. It's not for everyone and it's not for every show, but it's really wonderful that like it's great for just accessibility, that you can have someone across the world watch a show that you've done, or someone who's just not able to make it to the theater, or needs to watch it 2 weeks from now and can't come tonight. Finding ways to bridge distance and time through virtual theater is really awesome.
Mm-hmm. Have you given any thought to what you hope an audience in this moment would take away from the experience of a holy show?
Well, more than anything, I hope they just laugh and sort of like release some of the tension and stress that I think we all, have on our shoulders most days. It's just like, it's such a joy to hear laughter and to remember to laugh myself, to laugh even through the darkest moments, which, this show is sort of about. And yeah, I want to, continue to encourage people to be safe, but to like, have some courage to reconnect, with things that bring them joy and people that bring them joy. And it's been so gratifying to like get to work again with people, with the creative team, in the flesh, and to work through and sort of solve this problem and like build this thing together. And then to have people like, make the effort to come out of their houses, which, I know takes a lot of effort. Some days I just can't handle leaving. So to have people take that leap of faith and come down to the Drake for an hour with us, it really feels like a gift all around. So I'm really grateful for it.
I had two thoughts earlier when we were talking about the Third Secret of Fatima.
Mm-hmm.
I said I thought it would be interesting to say, Holy Father, here is the key to your private quarters, the Wi-Fi password, and the Third Secret of Fatima.
Yeah, exactly. Yeah.
You keep this on your person at
Right.
all times. And the other thought is, after this experience, every flight is going to be boring.
Mm-hmm.
Because there's so many characters here. There's so much going on.
Yeah.
So this will be a thrill ride in under 70 minutes.
Yeah, and it's like a throwback because it's 81 and they're still smoking on planes, and it's still sort of glamorous and like this thing that like was special. Like, I don't know about you, but growing up, like my mom always was like, we're going on a flight, so like put on your nice clothes, like dress up. It's like an event to get to even just
the Sunday best.
Yeah.
Put on your Sunday best wasn't just for Sundays. It was for everything that was like out of the ordinary.
Right. Yeah. So for a lot of these characters, it was just a special event, and people were going to see loved ones and find new jobs and go on honeymoons. And so, yeah, it was a different time and a lot of fun.
Yeah. So the production is A Holy Show. It's written by Janet Moran.
That's right.
It's an American premiere presented by Inish Nua Theater Company. It's starring Liam Mulshine and Rachel Brodeur. Is it
Yes.
Brodeur?
Broder, yeah.
Broder, Rachel Broder. And it's on stage now. If you're listening to this now, go experience this. You can go to Inishnua Theater, and that's theaterre.org. If you are listening to this, tickets are still available, so do not wait. And always get more than one ticket, because theater is more fun with a +1.
Oh, yeah.
Liam Mulshine, thank you so much.
Thank you, Darnell.
Talking to you so much.
Yeah,
thank
likewise.
you for taking the time and playing catch up, and looking forward to getting into this space and getting back to live theater, because I miss it just like everyone else, and it's all. Oh, I want to get back to when I'm just super overloaded with shows to go see.
Too many shows, yeah.
Weaning into it now, trying to adjust and get back into it, but I miss that so much. And even though there were some things that I was like, okay, maybe I'll scale some of this back, it was still very much a part of me. Yeah, but thank you so much. It was really a pleasure talking to you.
Absolutely.
Rep Radio is an Emory production. You can find Rep Radio on social media at Rep Radio on Facebook, at Rep_Radio on Instagram and Twitter. For more information, visit us online at em3ry.com. Ride with us. Emory is on the move.